Well, welcome everyone to our first pre-recorded lesson. It's probably appropriate to pre-record this one because today we're going to introduce actual yoga asana, two simple ones, and we're going to discuss how what we've done to date, that is initially the breathing with a fairly precise practice, and then moving with that breathing that we learned in the seated practice that we did last time. So the key thing to adapting any of these asana, these yoga postures, to the needs of amputees is to get a new reference point for your body's balance and symmetry, because if you're missing a leg, if you're missing an arm, inevitably all your movement is inherently asymmetrical, and that has a long-term effect on the body. We're not getting feedback from our arms if you're missing an arm. We're not getting equal feedback from our legs if you're missing a leg. And so what we're looking for is to get a reference point, first of all, from our pelvis, that our spine is being supported evenly, and then from our shoulder blades and our collarbone, to get the idea that our chest is symmetrical and well centered. So we went through that with the breathing. Now we're going to apply this to two standard yoga postures. And they are Apanasana, which we will adapt, which is going to obviously get some forward flex in the back, especially the lower back. And as long as you don't overdo this, it's always a very good thing to know how to do. And we're going to do a complement to that, which is Bhujangasana or cobra pose. But we're going to look at these things specifically from how do you execute them when your focus for balance and symmetry is your heart center, center of your chest, and your pelvic center. So we'll put them away. And we'll start. First thing that we have to start with, after I make everything tidy, the first thing that we have to start with is some sort of warm-up. It's not advisable to go into any yoga practice of the traditional asanas without first warming up. And I will teach a warm-up later on, which is probably more suited to people with multiple legs, but we can get around it if we have control of the pelvis. But at this stage, we'll just take what we've already learned and start with our shoulders. So we'll take the right shoulder and rotate it in a circle. Remember, it doesn't matter how big the circle is, what matters is that it's a circle. Rotate it backwards in a circle, trying to keep your elbow joint and your wrist very loose. Right, and then we'll do the same with the other side. Rotate forward, drawing a circle with the point of your shoulder, and rotate backwards, drawing a circle with the point of your shoulder. And now, because we always follow asymmetry with symmetry, we'll start both shoulders together, going forward, and backwards. Okay. And we'll just rest there for a second. Now, we can turn to face our leg, whether you're sitting or lying, or sitting in a chair or sitting cross-legged. As we did in the seated practice, just take your sternum towards your knee, just as far as is comfortable. I'm not going to push it at all. Come up. Exhale as we go down to the other side. and then bend forward. And arms up to bend backwards, but keeping our chin down. And again. And we can move sideways as we learn. So arm up on an inhalation. Other side. And its symmetrical counterpart. So there we go. We've got a bit of movement into our spine. We will be sitting correctly on our pelvis, because we learnt that in the last lesson. And we'll begin with the very first thing we're going to learn, which is Shavasana. Basically, lying on your back. It's important to get this right because it's a fundamental balance posture. After you've done something strenuous, if you don't know the correct balance to it, lying down and resting will always help. So we're going to lie down. The first thing to take into consideration is that if you've got tension in your lower back, you can either bring your legs up. If you've only got one leg, you can cross your short leg over the other one, but then go back and make sure your pelvis is even. The other thing you can do is put a pillow under your knees if there's too much tension in your lower back when you lie down. So we're lying down. And we're going to do what we did when we were learning to breathe. Inhale, starting, focusing on the center of the chest. And as we exhale, we're going to start our exhalation from the pelvic center, from our lower abdomen. And you'll probably notice as you do that you're not perfectly symmetrical, and you just sort of need to wriggle to get things a bit organized. And breathe again. Inhale. Contract the muscles a little bit, and then exhale, keeping our pelvis nice and square. If your neck's feeling a bit tight, you can gently rock it from side to side. Perhaps walk your fingers down so that your shoulders aren't lifted up. And the end result is you want to feel straight. You don't want any tension in your back. And you want to be in a position where you can feel supported by the ground. As you breathe centrally into your chest and then exhale centrally, starting at your lower abdomen, you'll frequently find you'll need to adjust. You want things to get a bit straighter, and that's perfectly fine. Do it. There are a couple of things to this lying down stuff that can be very useful. One is you bring yourself up on your arms and then start contracting your lower abdomen from the center, as we've learned, gently, and lower yourself down vertebrae by vertebrae. Getting it nice and straight. Just lengthen your spine a little bit. And go back to making sure that pelvis is square. The weight of your pelvis is even underneath you, so it's all nice and even. Inhale. Get things so that they're straight. Exhale. And rest with a straight spine, thoroughly supported by the floor. Now, the first thing we're going to do is Apanasana. Now, you can see my long leg on that side. There's a short one behind it. And Apanasana is a pretty simple posture to think about. We inhale, and as we exhale, bring knees up and bring them towards our chest. As you inhale, let your knees come out, and as you exhale, draw your knees in. If you've got two arms, use your arms to keep your legs even. Don't use them to pull. That's coming from here. So I'll show you without arms. And then just the weight of my arms and a little bit of assistance to get my pelvis square on the ground underneath me. And inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And when you put your feet down after however many repetitions you want to do, I suggest putting one down at a time, sliding the other one out. Again, make sure that your legs are positioned so you're not putting extra stress on your lower back. Okay. Let's think about some things that might apply to us as amputees. The first is the weight of the legs is different. So before I start to lift them, I'll inhale. Make sure I'm all nice and happy and straight. And exhale. Contract these muscles a bit. And be aware that you're putting even pressure on both sides of your pelvis so it's straight and evenly supported on the ground. That's our starting point. Having got our base correct, we can then continue the exhalation. Keeping our mind on the position of the pelvis. So inhale, the legs come up, get square, exhale, legs come towards my chest, and inhale, relax the legs. When you're finished, let's say 3 repetitions at this stage. Put your legs down and rest in Shavasana, otherwise known as corpse pose. So I'll do it one more time, and then we'll extend it with the arms. Although you won't be able to see my arms on the video because it's just focused on my body length, you'll get the idea how we can extend this. But when we start, let's just get the idea of starting by getting our base even, setting ourselves up to exhale from the center, and begin to exhale, then begin to move afterwards. If you're an above the knee amputee, so you haven't got knees to hang on to the back of your leg as low down as you can. The point is that whatever you need to do to support your residual limb, do the same if you've got a good limb on the other side, on the good limb side. So that let me just do this Apanasana, imagining that I had an above the knee amputation. Again, I'm inhaling. I've got myself this far. I'm going to inhale. Establish that symmetrical supported center from the pelvis, and then exhale. And rest. So that's how we look at Apanasana. Some thoughts. Definitely for any execution of yoga postures, yoga asana, what we learned about beginning to breathe, then begin the movement, complete the movement, and then complete the breath, has an extra benefit, because as we get ourselves ready to begin the exhalation before movement, for example, we also make sure that our pelvis is square, whether we're lying down or sitting up. Similarly, we get ready to inhale, we set ourselves up so that we're square and symmetrical. So, get all organised with a good, firm, symmetrical space, good balanced space, then begin breathing. If you take that moment between your inhalation and your exhalation to reset the balance and symmetry of your torso, it will make a great deal of difference in countering the asymmetry, which is just part of an amputee's life. So now we've done what's clearly some form of forward bend, although we were lying on our back, it was a bend forward. So now we'll balance that with a back bend, and in this case, it's Bhujangasana or cobra pose. So to do that, on our comfy mat or nicely carpeted lounge room floor, on your face. If you want to put something down to make it a bit tidier, you can do that. Remove glasses. The first thing we're going to do is just lie down. Put a head down. And as with everything, what we're concerned about here is the symmetry. So the asana is like this, and I'm not going to exaggerate it. We'll just do it very gently. And there are two things to notice. The first is obvious. My head isn't bent up. We're keeping the neck stretched, straight, and we're allowing the back bend to mobilise our upper back and our lower back without putting a lot of pressure on our neck. And again, the issue for people who are amputees, something's going to not be balanced here. There is more weight on my long leg side than on my short leg side. So that's not going to help with countering asymmetry if I don't counter that before I start to move. So it's exactly the same as what we said before. Get ready to breathe out. Set yourself up symmetrically with your pelvis. Then do your movement. So I'll do it like that. First of all, now I'm moving off something that's square and well supported here. Breathe in. Start to breathe out. Getting stuff nice and symmetrical. Go back to the floor. And if you're new at this, take a rest of a breath in between movements. So let me go through it again. First of all, get my pelvis even. Secondly, begin to inhale, then begin to move. Before I start moving, I'm going to make sure that I'm as square as I can be comfortably. Then I'm going to start to exhale. Then I'm going to move. And when you're ready, you can roll over and rest in Shavasana. If your body feels a bit tight after Bhujangasana, you can gently do a few moderate Apanasana movements. and then rest for a good few breaths. I'd suggest 12, but at least 6. Just rest and feel what you've done. So essentially that's it. 2 very simple movements. That'll introduce some movement into your back. And also, that allow us to get the idea of getting our pelvis and our shoulders, where necessary, our chest, correctly aligned before we start the movement. Things to look out for. It is not the final asana, the final form that matters. It's the process of getting there. Don't do anything more than a strong, comfortable stretch. And if you have some back tension, some pressure, use Apanasana to relieve it. Just use a simple forward bend to take some pressure off your lower back, which is likely to be where you get the pressure from. And don't push yourself. No more than a strong, comfortable stretch. No sharp pain. And do it moderately enough to begin with so that you feel relaxed and comfortable at the end, not feeling like you've got a whole lot of sore muscles because you pushed it too hard. It will not take very long for these movements to have effect, but don't underestimate the power of getting your pelvis straight, getting your collarbones and your shoulders straight, and then deliberately moving while keeping those things straight. There's a lot of work you'll be doing on your back, a lot of work mobilising things that may not have moved for a while if you spent a long time in a chair. So do it moderately and always relax enough between movements to find out what you've done. That's a major way to stay safe, especially, as I say, if you spend a long time not being mobile. And it also gives your body a chance to refill muscles that have been stretched, where the blood's been squeezed out, and get ready for another movement. So try those 3 things. Lying flat, make sure your legs are positioned so there's no tension in your back. Apanasana, get your pelvis square before you move, and use your hands really only to keep your legs square. Don't pull them towards you, certainly not with any great deal of force. And when you're doing Cobra, Bhujangasana, again, use the arms that are beside you to take the weight of your arms if you've got to, and to keep your movement square. Don't push yourself up and put pressure on your lower back with your arms. It really won't help. We're looking to introduce mobility forward and back into our spine with those 2 asanas. Give it time, take care of yourself, rest as much as you need. Send me an email if you want to discuss anything before we get together for our review session. And in the meantime, take care.